What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about on a daily basis, including money, investing, the stock market, the fourth stimulus package update, and stimulus check update. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, make sure to click the subscribe button down below. It's completely free to do so. Remember that new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, thanks for hitting the like button. President Biden admits that the U.S. economy has problems, says recession is not inevitable here while he's in Japan. He also, we'll get to this here in a minute, may be egging on China to war. We'll get to that here in a second. But here's what he has to say about our economy problems.
During your trip here to Asia, you've promoted the investments by Samsung and Hyundai. But back home in the United States, Americans are dealing with record high inflation. The Fed has raised interest rates to try to address those issues. And they're also just enormously high gas prices. Given the cross currents of the economy right now, the war in Ukraine, the China lockdowns that we've seen, should Americans be prepared for a recession? In your view, is a recession in the United States inevitable?
No.
Why not?
Look, you're talking about the significant progress we've made in making sure we don't have supply chain backups, about the 8,000 jobs that Hyundai is going to be bringing to Georgia, 3,000 jobs to Texas from Samsung, $17 billion investment. Toyota, 1,700 jobs in North Carolina on battery technology. The situation where we've created over 8 million new jobs, where unemployment's down to 3.6%, and so on and so forth, as if they're a problem. Imagine where we'd be with Putin's tax and the war in Ukraine had we not made that enormous progress. Where our GDP is going to grow faster than China's for the first time in 40 years. Now, does that mean we don't have problems? We do. We have problems that the rest of the world has, but less consequential than the rest of the world has them because of our internal growth and strength. Here's the situation. And when it comes to the gas prices, we're going through an incredible transition that is taking place that, God willing, when it's over, will be stronger and the world will be stronger and less reliant on fossil fuels when this is over. You see what Europe is doing relative to the importation of Russian gas. You see what, anyway, I won't go through it all, but, and what I've been able to do to keep it from getting even worse, and it's bad. The price of gas at the pump is something that I told you, heard me say before, would be a matter of great discussion at my kitchen table when I was a kid growing up. It's affecting a lot of families. But we have released over 57,000 million barrels of oil, I should say, us and the rest of the world we're convinced to get involved. It's helped, but it's not been enough. We also find ourselves in a situation where we have food shortages. Food shortages because of Ukraine. There are literally millions of bushels of of grain being held up in Ukraine that would fundamentally impact positively on the market in terms of bringing down food prices across the board. So we're finding ourselves in a position where we're working very hard with American farmers and American agricultural products to provide more fertilizer and a whole range of things. This is going to be a haul. This is going to take some time. But in the meantime, it seems to me the best thing I can do, in addition to try to get the Middle Eastern countries, including OPEC, to raise their production of oil and move along that route, is to see to it that we continue to grow our economy, create jobs. And the other thing is, there's a second way. I know you don't want to talk about, people don't want to talk about it right now, and I won't take up the time, but there's a second way to impact on inflation in terms of people's daily cost. If you're able to have child care at 7% of your income, if you're able to be in a position where we were able to provide for a tax cut for middle-class people and working-class people, et cetera. All those things would be very helpful. But when we have a 50-50 Senate, it means we have 50 presidents. And I'm having a little trouble getting some of these things passed. But we're not going to give up. We're going to keep pushing.
President Biden mentioned the food shortages. The UN ambassador has said that global food shortages have reached level 10. Level 10. Yeah, so remember that food prices, gas prices, and inflation are a worldwide problem here. And food shortages are now going to be the next problem coming up here. This is coming from the United Nations. So here's what they have to say. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Linda Thomas Greenfield said Friday that the global food shortages due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict have reached the highest level of alarm, saying, quote, "I can tell you on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably at the 10 level of alarm because this crisis has exacerbated what is already a serious food insecurity issue," Thomas Greenfield said in an interview with the BBC. Consumer food prices in the US alone made the largest 12-month increase since 1981 in April, when they slid up by 9.4%. Wow. And they said food insecurity was a serious issue before Russia invaded Ukraine in February, but since then, the conflict and the war has severely worsened. Russia's aggression in Ukraine, its blockade of the ports, blocking Ukrainian wheat from getting to the market, has exacerbated the situation, made it even more dire, and its impact is being felt across the world and also raising prices on a lot of different food items and basic necessity items that go into a lot of other food items as well. Also, you can see here the US just accused Russia of holding the world's food supply hostage. It comes as experts warn that cyber attacks could also impact global supply chains even worse than they are now. Yeah, and this is because Ukraine exported more than $140 million of wheat to the US before the pandemic. And Russia is now using food as a weapon, partially by blocking Ukrainian ports, a U.S. official said. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken made the comments at a UN Security Council meeting here on Thursday. It comes as experts are warning that cyber attacks on Ukraine farming technology could worsen supply woes, and that the U.S. has accused Russia of enabling a global food crisis and holding supplies hostage by blocking Ukrainian ports and raising the prices of so many food items as well because of this whole war situation and the blocking of ports. U.S. Secretary of State Blinken demanded that Russia end its blockade of Ukrainian ports to ensure that vital food and fertilizer shipments can continue to flow. Well, Russia's not just going to do that. There is apparently some talks on possible lifting of sanctions against Russia in exchange for ending the blockade of Ukrainian ports. But if you start giving concessions to Russia for doing bad behavior, well, that's a double edged sword, as they're going to say right here. Ukrainian presidential advisor said no negotiations on concessions to the Russians should be held, as this will signal to them weakness of the European Union and the United States. Quote, Russia always blackmails and is ready to kill people to get some extra opportunities for itself. Saying, quote, let's imagine that some of the sanctions are lifted from it. This will stimulate it to further escalate the conflict and do even worse stuff. And not only in Ukraine, they, the Russians, will understand that the world is really weak as it was before the war in Ukraine. The official added that the agreement to unblock ports in exchange for lifting some of the sanctions could lead to other countries later having to participate directly in hostilities against Russia. Saying, quote, if you follow the lead in Russia by lifting some of the sanctions, they will continue to escalate the conflict in Ukraine and will set new conditions. And it could be endless. Then the conflict in Ukraine will, in any case, grow to the maximum. They will bring here both military equipment and manpower, and sooner or later, European countries will also be involved in the hostilities or in the war. Also, President Biden, while in Japan, was asked if the U.S. would defend Taiwan because they have an old kind of treaty. And, well, here's what President Biden had to say. Check this out.
Our policy toward Taiwan has not changed at all. We remain committed to supporting the peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits and ensuring that there is no unilateral change of the status quo. I would add that one of the reasons why it's so important that Putin pay a dear price for his barbarism in Ukraine. The idea that on your station today and every other station in America, they're showing bombings of every school, no military purpose, schools, hospitals, daycare centers, all the things, museums, blowing up all the museums. I believe what Putin is attempting to do is eliminate the identity of Ukraine. The identity. He can't occupy it, but he can try to destroy its identity. And the reason I bother to mention that is he has to pay, and Russia has to pay a long-term price for that in terms of the sanctions that have been imposed. And the reason I bother to say this, not just about Ukraine. If, in fact, after all he's done, there's a rapprochement met between between the Ukrainians and Russia, and these sanctions are not continued to be sustained in many ways, then what signal does that send to China about the cost of attempting to take Taiwan by force? They're already flirting with danger right now by flying so close and all the maneuvers that are undertaken. But the United States is committed. We've made a commitment. We support the one China policy. We support all that we've done in the past. But that does not mean that China has the ability, the jurisdiction to go in and use force to take over Taiwan. So we stand firmly with Japan and with other nations not to let that happen. And my expectation is it will not happen. It will not be attempted. My expectation is a lot of it depends upon just how strongly the world makes clear that that kind of action is going to result in long-term disapprobation by the rest of the community.
Very quickly, you didn't want to get involved in the Ukraine conflict militarily for obvious reasons. Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are?
That's the commitment we made. That's the commitment we made. We are not, look, here's the situation. We agree with a one China policy. We signed on to it and all the attendant agreements made from there. But the idea that it can be taken by force, just taken by force, is just not appropriate. It will dislocate the entire region and be another action similar to what happened in Ukraine. And so it's a burden that is even stronger.
Yeah, so I mean, you heard it right there from our president. Now this goes back to, so he says it's different than Ukraine being attacked by Russia, that we would have to defend Taiwan. This goes back to an old, I'll show you this here. kind of in something that explains it. So this is from the BBC. This article here. And it kind of has some good information. It explains this here. President Joe Biden has warned China is flirting with danger over Taiwan and vowed to intervene militarily to protect the island if attacked. There's a good reason for this. It has to do with a long old treaty here that the U.S. signed back in the day. Speaking in Japan, he appeared to contradict long-standing U.S. policy in the region. I don't know if I would say that because of, like I said, the treaty. Although the White House has insisted there's been no departure. Mr. Biden drew a parallel between Taiwan and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, prompting an angry rebuke from Beijing. Biden prefaced his remarks saying U.S. policy toward Taiwan has not changed, but his comments in Tokyo are the second time in recent months he has unequivocally stated the U.S. would defend Taiwan if China attacked, in what has been seen as a change in tone. The U.S. previously has been vague on what they would do in a situation. So that's kind of where this article is saying that they've changed their stance. You know, they're kind of over exaggerating that a little bit, just kind of looking at that from a realist. But remember, we have this kind of treaty here called the Taiwan Relations Acts. China regards Taiwan as a breakaway province that must be reunified with the mainland. Very similar to how Putin thinks of Ukraine and Crimea. He thinks of them as the old Russia, right? So very similar, right? Very similar. China regards Taiwan as a breakaway province that must be reunified with the mainland. Some people will say, well, we should just not stick our nose in it here. And you might think that might be smart here. China's got 4 times the population of us. Beijing's foreign ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said Taiwan is an inalienable part of China's territory. There's no room for compromise or concession. So this is what China's saying here, right? The Taiwan question and the Ukraine issue are fundamentally different. To compare those two is absurd. We once again urge the U.S. to abide by the one China principle. Even though Taiwan literally is not part of China right now, and when China flies their aircraft towards Taiwan, they send out fighter jets and ward them off. The U.S. has no official diplomatic ties with Taiwan, but sells arms to it as part of its Taiwan's Relation Act, which states that the U.S. must provide the island with the means to defend itself. It must provide the island with the means to defend itself. This Taiwan Relations Act goes back to 1979 and 1980, in case you're wondering here. So it is quite old, quite old. Now, see, when you read this bill that the U.S. has this treaty with Taiwan, it really depends on how you would interpret it. Because this bill says things like the United States shall make available to Taiwan such defense articles and defense services in such quantity as may be necessary to enable Taiwan to maintain a sufficient self-defense capacity as determined by the President and Congress. Requires such determination of Taiwan's defense needs to be reviewed by the United States military authorities in connections with recommendations to the President and Congress. Directs the President to inform Congress promptly of threats to the security or economic system of the people on Taiwan and any danger to the United States' interests of any such threats. So I mean, if China's attacking Taiwan, you would think that would be a threat to Taiwan, right? And ultimately, well, you heard the president say that if China attacks Taiwan, that we would intervene with our military, and it would be different than with Ukraine. I mean, you heard it from the president. I'm not. You heard it directly from him. So I don't know what to say. Let's just hope China doesn't do that. They haven't yet, but it sounds like they didn't like that. And from what China says, it sounds like they plan to in the future. Yeah, the world is crazy, absolutely crazy. Like if a country doesn't want to be a part of you, you shouldn't just take them over by force. Like if Taiwan doesn't want to be a part of China, you either ask them, you vote on it, or you don't just go in there and take them over with bombs. That's not how the world should work. Same thing with Ukraine and Russia. Like if Ukraine doesn't want to be a part of you, you don't just go in there and just start bombing children and schools and people and cities. I mean, look at Mariupol. It's like the whole city is gone. The whole city is gone. It's ruins. Like, is this what you want to do? Like, is this part of like, hey, let's bring them back to Russia by just destroying cities? Like, I mean, if you're looking at this from Putin's point of view, right? Like, let's bring them back into part of Russia. Like, same thing if you're looking at like China's point of view. Like, let's bring Taiwan as back to part of Russia by destroying it, by attacking them. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts here, but it just seems like everybody's trying to like bring us into war, and it's just like we don't want to we don't want to do this. Let me know your thoughts here in the comments, but I'll keep you up to date here with everything. It's crazy. So make sure to subscribe down below. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's completely free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. After subscribing, click the bell icon, and you'll get notified when we go live with new videos. I just came out with a really good video here on stimulus checks. Click on that video next. Watch that next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.